Hey, hi, it's me, your Void, and I'm doing way too much again. It is Adventurerathon time, season, whatever, again, and this time around, for the main round, Kirsty went a bit overboard, so making a recommendation video with one book per prompt is already a lot. But my overachieving ass thought one recommendation per prompt is not enough, not even close, so I just went and collected some, and then I collected some more, and now I am at 100 recommendations that I can give you. So that is what we're doing today. Because of the sheer number of books I will recommend to you, I will not go into any detail. This will be me throwing titles at you, maybe give you a snippet of information about the book, and then I will move on. I will not give you a review of the book if I have read it. I read most of the books I'm recommending because I'm not necessarily comfortable with recommending books I have not read. I will tell you if I haven't read a book that I'm recommending, but I have made sure that all of these books fit the prompts, even the ones I haven't read. So all of these books are following the general vibe of trust me, bro. But also, if there is any kind of dispute coming on, you can just point to this video and claim that I told you it fits. I'm a co-host, so it's probably okay. Kirsty just has to eat it. I get to do what I want. Okay, so the first prompt is for Hänsel and Gretel. Hänsel und Gretel. And this one has the prompt to read something that features confections in some shape or form. I don't know. I am not someone who gravitates towards books talking about food, so I'm not giving you any recommendations for that. Thankfully, this prompt has a different interpretation, which means sweet romance. So I'm giving you some sweet romances for that one. The first one being the Muscles and Monsters series by Ashley Bennett. The first one, which is, I believe, just Muscles and Monsters. The series is also called Leviathan Fitness. There's that. But Muscles and Monsters is a sweet romance, and one of the characters owns a bakery. She makes cupcakes for a living, so I think that counts for both of the versions of this prompt. This one is a monster romance between a wolven, so a wolf person, not a shifter. He is just generally a humanoid wolf, and like I said, a cupcake shop bakery owner. And the rest of the series features sweet-ish romances. The next recommendation I have for you is the Brown Sisters trilogy, so we are way over 100 recommendations now. My math doesn't make any sense. We stick with 100 for the vibes. The Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert follows three different sisters, how they've manage their lives and fall in love. The first one is about a woman who tells herself to grow up. She has fibromyalgia, so everyone is kind of babying her. The second one is about an overachieving, I think she is working on her doctor title thing, and people tell her to calm the fuck down. And the third one is about the youngest sister, the baby sister, and everyone is telling her to grow the fuck up. Another sweet romance is Teacher of the Year by M.A. Waddell and the following books, which follows a bunch of kindergarten teachers and how they find love in their life. And they are all gay, and they all feature a Jewish main character, and yay. I really have to bite my tongue to not talk about these books at length. This is so against my nature. I want to yap all day, every day. But I also have to edit this video at some point. And the last recommendation I have for you for this specific prompt is Ellie Hayes and the Himmels by Vanessa King, which is about a woman freshly dumped because there is a medical scare in the room for her, so she moves out and she accidentally stumbles upon a roommate situation with a bunch of himbos. Very funny, that one. The next prompt is Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstilzchen! I dare everyone who is not German to pronounce that. Do it. Rumpelstilzchen. Fittingly enough, the prompt for that is to read something that features an unpronounceable name. Now, I don't know what kind of linguistic skills you possess. As you saw, I can pronounce certain things that sound very complicated to a lot of other people, so I don't know what kind of name is unpronounceable for you. You can bend the prompt. It's not bending, it's an official way of doing it. If you find a book that features a character with a very unique name. A lot of fantasy books do that. Now, the stipulation is it has to be a unique name. You can't just switch a K to a C or whatever. So it has to be a really unique name. For example, it comes to mind one of the characters in Someone You Could Build a Nest In. One of the characters has a very strange name. Stuff like that. That works just fine. The next prompt is Bluebird. The next prompt is Bluebeard, which wants you to read something that features marriage, wedding stuff. And for that one, I can recommend Mistletoes and Michigas by M.A. Wardell, because this entire plot hinges on one of the characters being invited to a wedding. A Christmas wedding. This book will come back in a second. So the entire romance between the kindergarten teacher and the janitor of the kindergarten he is teaching at is kicked off because he needs a date to go to this wedding. Then I have the first 3 installments of the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert, because they all hinge in one shape or form on a wedding. Neon Gods starts up with one of the characters running away from a marriage. Persephone was basically sold to Zeus and she does not want to marry Zeus, so she runs away and ends up in Hades' arms. In book 2, Electric Idol, we have a fake marriage between Psyche and Eros, because Eros was sent to kill Psyche, but he doesn't want to do that, so in order to save her life, they have to marry each other and then figure shit out. And in book 3, Wicked Beauty, we have Achilles and Patroclus compete in a competition where the prize is to marry Helen. Helen also competes in the competition because she doesn't want to be forcefully married, so there's that. And then there is a series called The Brides Made for Hire series by Megan Quinn, I believe was the author's name. I have not read any of these, but given the titles, I'm pretty sure they have something to do with weddings. Then we have arguably my favorite prompt to give you recommendations for. Not necessarily my favorite prompt overall, but my favorite prompt to give you recommendations for, because this is the prompt. This is the one prompt where I can become a repeat offender, because it would not be a recommendation video, especially for the Adventurerathon, if I could not plug at least once my favorite series of all time, which is the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. Now, how can I plug this for the prompt that wants you to read origin stories and prequels? Well, I'm glad you asked. There are prequel novellas for the Powder Mage universe about Thomas, one of the main characters of the first trilogy of the Powder Mage Chronicles, and a bunch of other characters as well. They come in collections, they come in singles, take your pick, and they all take place either before the entire series or before certain books, and they are also some origin hints for some characters. But I'm not done yet, because I told you that's the first trilogy, meaning the entire first trilogy, Promise of Blood, all the way to Autumn Republic, technically is the origin story and the prequel to the second trilogy, which starts off with Sins of Empire. I will never not be able to recommend Promise of Blood to you for Adventurerathon. I will find a way to squeeze it in. It's just the law. Another origin story I can recommend to you is Angels Before Men by Nicolas Raphael, which is specifically the first book is the origin story of Lucifer as the king of hell. And technically it's also the prequel to Humankind, kind of, because we follow Lucifer after he is born and how he comes of age. It's not really coming of age story, given that the concept of time hasn't been invented yet, but we follow Lucifer from the moment he's created to the moment he falls. It is pitched as a retelling of Paradise Lost. It is so visceral. If you want to read this, please heed the trigger warnings. This book does not hold back. Then for Snow White, the prompt is number 7. I low-key hate prompts that are vague like that, but at the same time I don't mind it because I can recommend random shit for it, so I will recommend random shit for it. The first 2 books I will recommend for this, I have not read this. The first one being The Malevolent 7 by Sebastian de Castell. It has the word 7 in the title, and I believe we follow 7 different characters. That is all I know about this book. But it has the word 7 in it. There you go. Number 7. Then the next recommendation, again, I have not read this, are The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart something. Again, we have a 7 in the title. Duh, it's technically 7.5, but like the word 7 is there, so Close enough, I guess. Then I have the recommendation of Thimble by Hannah Briss for you. You might be asking, where's the 7 there? Count the letters in the title. The word thimble has 7 letters. Boom! Prompt fulfilled. Thimble is a fairy tale. Not much more to say about that. Next up, we have When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Niveau. Again, you ask yourself, where's the 7? Count the words in the title. When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. 7-word title. There you go, number 7. In this one, we follow Chi, who is a monk, priest, whatever the fuck, historian, and they are traveling over a mountain, and on the mountain, they meet a group of tigers. This is also a fairy tale-esque thing. And then, if you don't want to read a book for this, you can literally read the 7th volume of any manga or comic or graphic novel, because they will always feature the number 7. Just read the 7th volume, or the 7th book in the series. That'll do it. And for Donkey Cabbages, you are supposed to read a book that either has a bonkers title or a bonkers plot. I give you a bonkers plot first, with The Fating by someone. Diana Roman. This one, I read this and I don't know. I don't know. This is about a guy who travels with alien Shrek and has a lot of sex with said guy. It's definitely bonkers, definitely. To this day, I question what I read and why I think it is so good. I at least had fun with it. The next one has a bonkers plot and a bonkers title, because I am recommending to you Dick Fight Island by Raibunaik. This is about a competition between a bunch of guys, and they literally dig it out in order to figure out who is going to be the king of this archipelago for the next 4 years. Do you see that? That is armor for a dick, because they don't want to finish first. Whoever finishes first in a duel has lost. Another bonkers plot I have for you is 8 Billion Genies by Charles Soule and Ryan Brown. In 8 Billion Genies, you follow the concept of what happens when 8 billion people on this planet all get a genie and a wish all at the same time. It is very bonkers, very quickly, and it just goes places. It is hilarious and surprisingly deep. We ask some very interesting questions about society and mankind. Next recommendation is Of Black Flags and Devil Birds by Christopher Robertson. Yes, Christopher Robertson, I think. In this one, you have pirates who accidentally stumble upon an island filled with dinosaurs. Do I have to say more? And the final recommendation for this prompt is The Stranger Times by C.K. McDonnell, in which we follow the staff of a newspaper that reports on everything normal newspapers don't want to talk about, like aliens and demonically possessed toilets in the middle of somewhere. And they believe in what they write. Then for the Snow Queen prompt, you're supposed to read something that features a good versus evil dynamic. So the first recommendation I have for you is The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Heckwith. In this one, we have literally an angel trying to do something against a demon of sorts. It's a bit stretchy, but it's basically this angel is tasked by heaven to find part of a book that Satan also wants. So technically it is good versus evil. There are more demons involved, there are more angels involved, and we follow the characters caught in the middle of all of this. So there is good versus evil in here. Then we have Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Jona Dawson. In this one, we have not your typical good versus evil, but there is a good side and there is a bad side, and they are dishing it out over something called the Sullied Child. This person is prophesied to bring forth the evilest of evil powers, and we have people opposing this prophecy and the people who try to make this prophecy come true. It's a bit messier than that. This is not very black and white. It is depiction of good and evil, but it is definitely in there. Last recommendation for this prompt is Malice by John Gwynne. This is your typical good versus evil fantasy, just that you don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are from the beginning. Because in this one we have a prophecy that prophesizes a chosen one for both sides of the coin. There will be a chosen one for the bad guys and a chosen one for the good guys, and we follow a bunch of characters who are looking for this chosen one, who are working for the chosen one, protecting the chosen one, manipulating the chosen one, shining the shoes of the chosen one, I don't know, but we follow both the chosen ones. It just takes us a moment to figure out who said chosen one is. Kind of. This very stereotypical good versus evil hero's journey story. Duh. And there are also forces of good and evil in the background working to get what they want. They are a bit more clear-cut. For the ugly duckling prompt, I can't help you. I can't help you with that. This is about the pretty and ugly covers of, I think, the same book. It's like a pretty edition and an ugly edition. I don't know. Art is in the beholder. All 11 of them. You have to decide for yourself. I don't know what's on your shelf. I don't know what you consider a pretty version and a not so pretty version. This one's up to you. I believe you can do it. I believe in you. Then we have Puss in Boots. Something that features cats in some way or form. The prompt is very vague, if you ask me. My first recommendation for this is Nyankees by, I forgot the author's name. Nyankees is a manga series where we follow a bunch of characters dishing it out as like street gangs. But the thing is, all of these characters are actually cats. You see these cat fights, but also people just fighting each other. It is hilarious. They are usually fighting over a girl. It is hilarious. I can only recommend this. If you are into cats and want to read something very funny, very stupid, read Nyankees. It's only 6 volumes long, which means it doesn't qualify for the number 7 prompt. You could also read the entire Teachers in Love series by M.A. Waddell. I already mentioned Michigas and Mistletoes, and I already mentioned Teacher of the Year. You can read the entire series because the entire series features at least one cat dad. There are cats in there. They are also usually on the cover, so there are cats in there. And my final recommendation for this prompt is The Stardust Sea by Aaron Morgenstern, because this features cats as very important conduits, messengers. They have somewhat of a mystical function in this one, together with owls. The owls are basically their opposite sign, omen. Trust me, bro, there are cats in here and they are important. Next up we have Rapunzel, and the prompt for that is to read something that features an escape plan. My first recommendation for that is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, because everything our main character Vanya does is to escape the circumstances she finds herself in. She stole someone's identity because she wanted to escape the situation she was in as a abused housemate. Then she gets into some trouble and she wants to escape that situation. Also, she became a thief in order to get enough money to escape the country she's in. She's usually just running away from something and trying to escape a problem that 90% of the time she has created herself. So she's escaping a lot, and she's making a lot of plans to escape. So then we have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This might be a little stretch. Because technically, the plan is not necessarily to escape, but it starts with an escape from prison. So there has been a plan to escape at some point, and then we escape. Also, you could argue that the two main characters, Eli and Victor, escape death, which then gives them their superpowers. This one would also work for origin story because it is dual timeline, and we see in one timeline how Eli and Victor got their powers. So basically how they became who they are in the present timeline, if you think about it. And the last recommendation I have for that prompt for you is The Jasmine Throne, because there is an entire storyline of a princess wanting to escape this monastery that she is being kept in, and in order to do that she also needs to escape a person that keeps drugging her, which prevents her from escaping. And then for Goose Girl we read about traitors and betrayers. For that I have the entire Will Darling series by KJ Charles for you, because one of the main characters, Kim Secretan, his job is to lie and betray and deceive. That is his job, and he's doing that in order to catch traitors, kind of, more or less. So yeah, also gay romance. It is brought up in the story that he is such a liar and has no trouble with betraying people. It is a big point of friction between the two main characters, so yes. Then I have a comic for you, specifically House of Slaughter Volume 1. Volume 1 specifically because there is a betrayal in here. Technically there are 2 betrayals in here, and one of the main characters, Jace, is actually labeled a traitor because of the things that happen in here. He also comes from a treacherous house that betrayed the cause, apparently. So yes, specifically Volume 1, but I would actually say because Jace is labeled a traitor, you could read Volume 1, Volume 3, and Volume 5, which is the story of Jace. And the final recommendation I have for this prompt is another Brian McClellan, Shadow of Lightning. Because in this one, we kick the entire story off with a major betrayal, and the character who is betrayed then throughout the book uncovers who done did it and why. I count that for the prompt. Also, there's a lot of scheming going on, so there are more traitors and betrayers in here. And that's it for the fairy tale prompts. We will now move on to the folklore prompts. The folklore prompt section starts with the myth of the Lorelei. I love the story of the Lorelei, and yes, I am responsible for Kirsty making this prompt a thing. I'm not the origin of the prompt, I'm just an origin of the story behind the prompt. Anyway, the Lorelei wants you to read something that features mermaids and or sirens. So my first recommendation for you is Daughter of the Pirate King and the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller, because the main character is, in fact, a siren. And I mean, duh, Daughter of the Siren Queen kind of gives it away, right? And she also does use, like, siren-esque powers. The second recommendation I have for you is The Lies We Sing to the Sea by Sarah Underwood. In this one, it is not necessarily mermaids and sirens, at least in name, but what they do is very similar, because two characters in here are fish-esque lady creatures who try to drown a very specific man. Definitely a mermaid, definitely called a mermaid. She calls herself a mermaid in this story, is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Caw. But this is the monstrous kind of mermaid, you know, the one that eats people. It's a horror, I want to call it a fairy tale, but it's like a horror fairy tale novella where we follow this mermaid as she makes a trek through a country that has been ravaged by her own children. Another not quite siren, not quite mermaid, but close enough story is The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which features a people. It's a kind of people, and they are kind of like mermaids. You would think they are fish people. They are fish people, like you would think mermaids are, just that they don't call themselves mermaids. And they are actually the descendants of the pregnant women that were thrown overboard during the transatlantic slave trade, and then these babies turned into fish people and made their own thing. And the last recommendation I have for this prompt is A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. This one is the one where I stretched the prompt a bit, because technically this has nothing to do with sirens or mermaids, but if you think about it, what does a siren do? A siren uses her beautiful voice to get people to jump overboard so they can eat them. In A Song to Drown Rivers, we follow the story of a very beautiful woman. She's one of the legendary beauties of China, and she is trained and then sent to seduce a man into his own undoing. I personally would count it because it hits the same hallmarks as a siren story would, especially the Lorelei myth. So I would count it. I have not cleared this with Kirsty. If you want to read it, go for it. I say you can. Feeling sassy today. Next up for Robin Hood, we have Squad Goals. And that one actually took me longer than I thought to get there. Like, I love me a good found family, but not all of these are squad goals. Anyway, one of these found families that I actually do think are squad goals is whatever the fuck is going on with the crew of Lord of the Empty Isles by Jules Arbot. I don't know. This is Robin Hood Pirates in Space. I love all of his characters. Next up is Red Queens. They just seem like a cool bunch of people, and yeah, it's D&D as a comic with only women. Speaking of D&D, I can wholeheartedly recommend Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This one feels like a D&D campaign, but every character is actually of retiring age. These are a bunch of adventurers who have retired, but now they have to do one more job to get it done, and I love all of them. Also, they do this because they want to save the daughter of one of them in the squad. Then for Krampus, or Krampus, we have to read Christmas stuff. It's Christmas in July. I don't know what to think about that prompt, but I give you recommendations anyways. The first one being the Klaus comics by, I forgot who wrote them, Grant Morrison? I think it was Grant Morrison. This is like action lumberjack Santa Claus. The first one is also kind of his origin story, so it would work for the origin story prompt. But yeah, this is some action-packed Santa Claus stuff. He's fighting bad guys and monsters shit. Nice! Then, repeat offender with Mistletoes and Michigas. This wedding that the main character is invited to happens at Christmas. And I mean, Mistletoes and Michigas kind of gives it away. This is happening around Hanukkah and Christmas time. And the last recommendation I have for this prompt is How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. Which, yes, it looks like a Grinch retelling. It kind of tries to be a Grinch retelling. It kind of is a Grinch retelling, but not really. And I just had a fun time with it. In this one, you have Christmas competitions. Then for Anansi, we have to read something that features tricksters. And my first recommendation for that is The Lavender Blade by E.L. Deards? I don't know. And in this one, you follow two con men who pretend to be possessed by demons and exorcising the demons. And then it backfires. Now, this one might be a stretch, but again, I say you can read it for this prompt. I recommend The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is technically a competition between two magicians. They're just digging it out over a huge amount of time, but they have to do it in the way that the people witnessing what they are doing, the people who are witnessing their magic, don't realize it is magic. So you gotta be tricky for that. Also, it's about a circus, and a circus works with a lot of tricks. I counted. And this might also be a bit of a stretch, but also it is not. The Iron Druid Chronicles by Kevin Hearn. The main character has to trick gods in order to survive. But if you don't like that explanation for picking this one up, we have trickster gods in here. At one point, Coyote shows up, and that is a, I believe, Native American trickster entity / god. And Coyote shows up, and Coyote does what Coyote does. Just saying. I count it. And then for The Vanishing Hitchhiker, you are supposed to read a ghost story. For this, I can recommend wholeheartedly City of Carnal Delight, in which a medium, a pyromancer, a soldier with the ability to see beyond the veil, and an exorcist are hunting down the ghost of Jack the Ripper. Also, it's polyamorous. Then, one of my absolute favorite stories ever, The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. I already promised. I have no idea what Kirsty will put in her recommendation video. If we timed it right and everything worked out the way it was supposed to, these videos go live on the same day, and I bet my left ass cheek that she recommends The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White for this prompt as well. And rightfully so. This is a beautiful, beautiful story. Well, it's actually kind of a fucked up story, but it features a lot of ghosts and people who can see ghosts and people who can manipulate the veil separating the living from the dead, and the ghosts of a bunch of murdered girls ask the main character to help them move on to solve their murder. Then I have a middle grade recommendation for you with City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab, where we follow a girl who almost died one day, and now her best friend is a ghost, and she can see ghosts, and she helps these ghosts to move on when they are stuck. Everyone except her best friend, who is a ghost. I am also responsible for the next prompt, again, just for the story behind it, not necessarily the prompt itself, because we are talking about the story of the Erlkönig, or Elf King, if you don't speak German. And for that prompt, you are supposed to read something that is plant horror and or forest horror. And my first recommendation is the vegetarian retelling of Frankenstein with a botanical daughter. It's literally just Frankenstein, but make it vegetarian and also gay. And the next 4 recommendations I have for this prompt, I cannot tell you anything about them because I have not read them. I do want to read all of them, though they are on my list. The first one being They Bloom at Night by... I just remember it is TTT, and all of these have an A in it. Was it Tran? I do not know, and I probably butchered it right now. But it's on my list. And it's plant horror. Just like Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. I am not sure if this is actual plant horror or fungus horror. Technically, fungus horror is not plant horror because fungi aren't plants. But I guess people think that is hair splitting, so Then we have Swallowed by Max Smitherman. Again, I believe this is plant horror. I have no idea what this is about, but this is on my immediate TBR. If you want to know more about that, you have to wait until I make my TBR video or something. Shamelessly self-plugging my own stuff. You gotta like and subscribe to see that video. And the last recommendation, again, I have not read this, but Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin? That one is also plant horror, according to the internet. And then for the urban myth of Area 51, we have the prompt of read a sci-fi with or without aliens. And for that one, I give you sci-fi with aliens and without aliens, but mostly with aliens. The first one being The Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet. And knowing that Kirsty does not read a lot of sci-fi, I'm pretty sure she's also recommending this one because she liked this one. This is a slice of life of a crew that is flying through the universe for an entire year to make a wormhole, or the equivalent of a wormhole, and they are traveling to a small They're traveling for a year. That's the long way, and they are traveling to a small and angry planet. I also recommend the Stardust Grail, especially if you like the world building of a long way to a small angry planet, because this one does something very similar, and in this one we race to find the Stardust Grail in order to save a species from dying, but also humankind from being severed from intergalactic travel. Then we have Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe, where we follow a character who wakes up on an enemy ship 200 years after a war broke out. She got hit in the first wave, knocked out, and then she wakes up on an enemy ship 200 years later and gets told, yeah, no, the war's over because everyone died. And then, and I haven't read this one, The Blighted Stars by Megan E. O'Keefe. I picked this up because I liked Velocity Weapon, so I picked this, so that I forgot what this is about, but it's in space and it's a sci-fi. Then we move on to The Devil's Footprint and the prompt of reading a mystery. My first recommendation for this is What Moves the Dead. You might notice that I'm not recommending this for plant horror because, again, this is about mushrooms, not about plants. And I have read this one, so I know it's about mushrooms. And it's a mystery because it's basically the fall of House Usher, but like retold, so we don't really know what's going on until we know what's going on. It's a mystery. I also recommend Witchmark by C.L. Polk, in which we follow a doctor, I believe he's a doctor, who tries to figure out A, why do all of these soldiers suddenly lose their marbles, and B, why are they disappearing from the hospital? Where do they go? It's a mystery! The next two might be a bit of a stretch, but the first one I'm recommending is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaSalle. This is technically more on the horror side than on the mystery side, but half of this book is spent following a guy who tries to figure out what happened to the guy we follow in the first half. And the guy we follow in the first half experiences a lot of very mysterious bullshit. I count that. And the second one is also kind of a stretch, because it's not necessarily a mystery, but it kind of is a mystery, and that is Blackheart Nights by Laura Eve. Again, it's not necessarily a mystery, but the entire story is told in dual timeline, and they build up to a point where they converge, and you are never told why or when or how these characters will intersect until it happens. And there is some sort of a mystery to it, because we do not know the motivation for the things one character does in this book. And she's a main character. She dominates half of this timeline situation. I classify this as a mystery. Footnote! Do not read book 2. You do not need to read book 2. Treat Blackheart Nights as a standalone. I beg of you. Do not read book 2. As someone who has read it, as someone who has suffered through book 2, do not read book 2. Blackheart Nights is a standalone. Do you understand me? Next up is Black Shuck, and for this one you have the prompt of Dog. My first recommendation for this is, I think it's a middle grade. It might be a middle grade, might be a children's book. I'm not quite sure, but it is a solo by... I forgot the author's name. This is a comic about how dogs became humans' best friends with the mythology of Solo and how he runs through the underworld and gets you from A to B through the underworld. And it's a beautiful story, and it is very easily digestible because it's more aimed towards kids, and it's beautiful, beautiful artwork inspired by the original stuff you can find in the ruins. Beautiful. My next recommendation is another Andrew Joseph White with Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. As you can see, there is a dog on the cover, and she is a major part in the story. She hangs out a lot with our main character, and yes, she is fine. Despite the title, despite what it looks like on the cover, she is fine. Nothing happens to her. The dog lives. She's alright. Don't fret. Another recommendation I have for that prompt is Leather and Lark, the second book in the Ruinous Love trilogy, because Lark has a dog. She has a very big dog. He is a good doggy. He protects Lark with all he has. He's a very good doggy. He gets hurt, but he's fine. He's fine by the end. He gets hurt, but he's fine. I would not recommend books to you where the dog dies. And the last recommendation I have for this prompt, I have not read this book, but Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen, methinks, has a dog on the cover. I don't know if the dog is important in the story, but it's on the cover. It's a good boy, because all dogs are. Next up, we have Ötzi. You know, the man frozen somewhere on a mountain. What happened around him is very much curse of the King Tut, that kind of stuff. People just tended to die around him. Whoopsie. His prompt is curses because of that, and for that one I recommend Little Thieves by Margaret Owen again, because the main character, Vanya, pretty much at the beginning gets cursed by a forest goddess for her unending greed, and she needs to figure out how to fix that curse. I also recommend Cursed Under London by Gabby Hutchinson Crouch, I believe was her name, where we follow two characters who are cursed and they have to work together now to fix this curse. Their curse being immortality. They randomly got cursed with being immortal for some reason, and now they try to figure that out and fix it. Then for Bunyip, the prompt is to read something that has a cryptid main character, and I was shocked to realize that despite my love for monster romance, I never really read cryptid stuff. Maybe my definition of cryptid is too narrow, I don't know, but I only read one thing that actively features a cryptid, and even that was kind of a stretch, but also kind of not. But I'm talking about Found by the Lake Monster by Lillian Lark, which is another bathhouse romance situation, monster romance between a lake monster, not a kraken, a lake monster, and a human. She stumbled through the forest, it was his forest, he found her. The rest is history. So now come a couple of recommendations that I have not read, but they feature cryptids. First being Cryptid Club by Sarah Anderson. I love Fangs by Sarah Anderson, so I imagine Cryptid Club is just as hilarious. It's a comic, probably about cryptids. There is a Mothman on the cover. Speaking of Mothman, Dear Mothman by Robin Gao. It is a middle grade, and I believe it is about a boy writing letters, a trans boy writing letters to Mothman to cope. And then I had to put this here because the title was so outrageous, but Mothman did a great job of installing my audio system, and now he's eating my ass by Chuck Tingle. I could be wrong, but I think the short story is about a Mothman installing a audio system for someone and then eating them out. Apparently this features a trans character. Do with that information what you will. For King Arthur, we need a story that features the Chosen One trope, and my first recommendation for this might be a stretch, again, but Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White, because of course, this features a Chosen One. Our main character is the Chosen One. The problem is that they are not chosen to save the world, but they were chosen to become the thing that is potentially destroying the world. Still a Chosen One. Next up, a bit more traditional Chosen One with Battle Mage. The main character is not necessarily chosen, specifically the Chosen One, but it is your typical Chosen One story, and we focus mainly on this character. Another Chosen One story would be Percy Jackson, because if you think about it, he is the son of Poseidon, and then later on there is a prophecy where he is the Chosen One to save the world when he turns 16. And another very, very traditional Chosen One story, but I don't know why you would do that to yourself when there are so many prompts to fulfill, is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. You know, the first book in the Wheel of Time series, which are like 14 brick houses of books. Why would you do that to yourself? Then for the story of Bus 357, you have to read something that features a travel element. My first recommendation for this is God Killer by Hannah Kaner. The first book basically is just a giant road trip, because character 1 and character 2 have to get character 3 from A to B. That is the entire story in book 1, basically. Another recommendation is another personal favorite of mine, Silver the Nightfall by Rin Chupaco. We follow two vampires and a vampire hunter traveling from A to B to figure out what the fuck is wrong with the country and why are there mutated vampires all around. Vampires! And then we have The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow, which is, again, a road trip story. Our main character travels a lot across the world, but also between worlds, because it's a story about doors, and every door leads to a different world. The Story of the White Snake wants you to read something that features a serpent, not a snake, a serpent on the cover or in the title. And for that one, my first recommendation, technically a stretch, but technically not, is Entranced by the Basilisks by Lillian Lark. Again, bathhouse romance series, there you go. Technically there is a serpent on the cover if you think about it, but also these two are basilisks, so technically they are not. But also what you cannot see on this cover, her hair is technically snakes by this point. Again, I'm a co-host, I say it works, so you can just do it. I'm also pushing the Lillian Lark agenda because more people need to read these monster romances. Just saying. You could also read The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, because there is in fact a snake on the cover, and it actually plays an important role in the book. Semi-important. It comes in clutch a couple of times. A recommendation of a book that I have not read, but it does feature a snake on the cover, is The Queen of the Conquered by Kaysen Callender. There's a snake on the cover. I don't know why, but it's there, so it counts. You could also read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I have not read this one, but it has a snake on the cover and in the title. Double whammy. I just hit my shelf. My finger hurts now. I am going to butcher this next prompt so hard. But for the story of Hu Yi and Chang Yi, you have to read something that features a dynamic duo. My first recommendation for this prompt is Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. The dynamic duo in here is actually Geyer, and I forgot her name, but she is chaos on two legs, and she has this aura of just dragging him along, and their dynamic is just amazing. Can only recommend it. Also, his sister and the apprentice she is traveling with, again, amazing. So you get two dynamic duos. You get a duo of dynamic duos. Look at me being an overachiever again. Next up, I have The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. No, Heart and Mercy are not the dynamic duo in this story. The dynamic duo in this story are actually two side characters, which are Zeddy and Pen. The way, the sass, the snark, perfection. But also Pen and Heart, they have a really good dynamic. They're also a dynamic duo, I would say. So again, you get a dynamic duo times 2. And the final dynamic duo I have for you is in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in all 3 novellas. You can read all 3 novellas, where we follow Dunk and Egg, and they are doing Hedge Knight shenanigans, and they are just amazing. They're just amazing. I love them. I love them so much. And yes, I will use this as an excuse to rewatch the entire show again, because duh. And the final prompt in the folklore section of this entire thing is another prompt that I'm probably going to butcher, but it's Pishtako. This prompt wants you to read something that features supernatural or paranormal elements, and my first recommendation for you based on that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is about a group of people who are trying to figure out where the ley lines are to find a lost king who is supposed to rise again at some point like King Arthur. But he has to be woken up first. Next up, and I have not read this one, is The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. It features a witch, apparently, and some mysterious disappearances of children. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. And my final recommendation for this prompt is another triple recommendation, because I recommend the entire Magpie Lord series by K.J. Charles. This, again, features magical elements, but there are also ghosts in here, and like possession and curses and stuff like that, so the interesting stuff, definitely supernatural and paranormal. And that is it for the folklore portion of this entire recommendation video. We are now moving on to the final one with the fables. For the fables, I only have 3 prompts, I believe, where I can actually give you recommendations, because the rest is very personal, person-informed. I can't decide that for you. You have to use your own brain for that. But for the very first one, the goats and the 3 kids, I believe was what it was called, you have to read something that features some kind of homicide. Something homicidal has to be in there. And for that one, I can recommend to you The Murder Between Us by Tal Bauer, which is a murder-esque story to drive a romance forth between a man who is very much gay and a man who is very much questioning if he is gay. Another one is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is a fantasy murder mystery you can solve alongside the main characters, and by the end there is this entire Agatha Christie-esque monologue of the main investigator revealing the killer and why and the how and the what for and all of that stuff. Very good shit. Very good shit. Recently read this. Enjoyed my time with it. Then we have Heartsick by Chelsea Kane, which follows a detective who is coming back to the job after having been sidelined because he was tortured by a serial killer for a hot second, and now the media is very much interested in his person, and he tries to get a grip on that by just picking a single journalist to follow him along as he solves a murder, again after dealing with the consequences of being tortured by a serial killer for 2 weeks. And my final recommendation for this prompt is barely visible on camera, but this is The Shepherd by Ethan Cross, in which we follow a guy who has worked for the police before, but due to some issues with authority figures, he is retired early. So he moved out to the middle of nowhere onto a ranch, and he's just trying to live his best life, but then one of his neighbors gets brutally murdered, and he somehow slides into the entire murder investigation, while also a notorious serial killer is running around in the area. Then for Frog in the Well, I cannot recommend anything to you because I don't know where you have been in your life before. I can literally just give you the tip, read something fantasy-esque, because I bet you have never been to Westeros or some other fantastical place. Same goes for The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I don't know what has been on your TBR. I don't know the repeat offenders that you just keep putting off for some reason. I can just tell you, now is the time to read it. If you need a sign to pick up the book you've been putting off for so long, consider this your sign. Then for The Townhouse and the Country Mouse, it's all about opposites and swapsies and whatnot. I had to question Kirsty what she means by that, and she gave me an answer, so now I hope all of my recommendations somehow fit. But the first one I have for you is Scythe by Neil Schusterman, where we live in a utopia, but if you know, you know, every utopia is secretly a dystopia. In this one, we follow two people who have been chosen to become scythes, the only people who can kill in this futuristic world where death is not a problem anymore. If you get killed by a scythe, you are dead. You cannot be revived, period. We follow these two characters who have been chosen to become basically the next generation scythes, and at some point in the book they are pitted against each other in basically a fight to the death. It's like an academic fight to the death, because whoever scores higher becomes a scythe, and their first assignment will be to kill the other one. Doesn't get more opposite than that, I guess. Another interpretation, another valid interpretation of this prompt would be to read something that features a grumpy sunshine romance, so I recommend to you Hoarded by the Dragon by Lillian Lark, which is a monster romance between a very grumpy dragon and a very bubbly and very pregnant, accidentally, thief. She broke into his hoard, he caught her, he was in heat, so she said, hey, how about you let me keep your life? In exchange, I help you with your heat. Deal? And he was like, deal. And then she accidentally got pregnant with a dragon. For the peacock and crane prompt, I can't help you. I don't know what you consider pretty. I don't know what you consider ugly. I don't know what's on your shelf that would fit those definitions for you. You have to figure that out yourself. Art is in the eye of the beholder. All 11 of them. The hare and the tortoise, again, I don't know what is on your TBR, so I don't know what is the longest book on your shelf. I don't know what is the shortest book on your shelf. I can only tell you that I am definitely not going with the longest book on my shelf, because that is 1,400 pages long, and I'm not doing that to myself when there are so many other prompts to read. No thank you. And then for the monkey and the crocodile, you have to read something that features at least 2 different animals on the cover, and my first recommendation for that is The Last Smile in Sunder City. Now, where are the animals on this cover? I hear you ask. You can kind of see the bird, but where's the second animal? Well, let me pop up a picture right here. There is a wolf on this cover. There are multiple wolves on this cover, actually. Only one bird, I think, but multiple wolves, and that makes at least 2. So you can read Last Smile in Sunder City, where we follow Fetch Phillips, who is a human in a world full of magical beings, dwarves, elves, gnomes, whatnot, but this world recently lost all of its magic, so now the dwarves, elves, gnomes, and whatnot are basically just humans, but let's say a 20-year-old elf is actually 250 years old. Well, now they look like 250 years old. So there is a lot of stuff going on in this world, and Fetch Phillips is just trying to A, survive, B, do his best with not a single brain cell in his head, and C, he's trying to help these now ex-magical creatures because he is somewhat involved in why the magic died. Then we have The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Niveau, which is the first book in the Singing Hills cycle, and this features a bunny and something else on the cover. I forgot. You can see it on the screen. In The Empress of Salt and Fortune, we follow Chi, who is a chronicler monk, and they are supposed to chronicle everything that is there, and in this volume we follow them to a house that was previously off limits. No one was allowed there. Now it is open to the public, so Chi wants to get there and record what they see, and they meet another person, and this person tells them what life was like at this mansion because they work there. It's a very fairy tale-esque thing, and I very much loved it. It can be a bit confusing, so just stick with it. Trust me, bro. The ending is worth it. And the very final recommendation I have for you, the 100th recommendation I have for this round of the Adventurerathon, is The Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, and this features a songbird and a snake in the title and on the cover, and this is one of the prequels for the Hunger Games series. I believe this is about the first ever televised Hunger Games, and we follow how Snow became the asshole that he is. So it would also count for the origin prompt. There you go. 2 for 1 special, I guess. And that is it. That is 100 book recommendations for the Adventurerathon. Yes, I already complained to Kirsty. I'm never doing that again. If she comes up with so many prompts for another round, I'm just not going to make a recommendation video. She's on her own for that one. I quit. Thank you. Goodbye. I'm out. But yeah, let me know if you are participating in the Adventurerathon and if you are picking up any of these recommendations for it, or just in general. Now that you know basically a singular thing about any of these books. If you have any questions about the readathon, you can always ask me. You can ask Kirsty. We have a Discord where we are a bit quicker in responding. If you don't want to talk to me at all, leave a fairy emoji down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I guess I will see you in the next video. Bye!